What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Ain't That It, where real life becomes real topics. I'm Marreo, your host, and I have a little company here today. They're deciding to be a little quiet right now. They were moving around here, being a little rambunctious, but now they're chilling. So Riley and Remy are here with me today, and we will see how this goes. Hopefully, they don't make any noise and get to start the fighting, as they sometimes do. First off, I would like to say thank you for all those who took the time to watch my Father's Day episode. It was a tribute to my father. So just really wanted to say thank you again for taking the time to watch the episode. It meant a lot to me, as you could see or hear from the episode that, my father meant so much to me as well. So, or means so much to me, not means so much to me as well. And it was just, I got a lot of love. I got a lot of positive responses to the episode. So again, I just want to say thank you. So without further ado, and before we really get into the thick of things, today I just want to talk about freedom. We, a lot of times in America, seem to say, we talk a lot about freedom, rather. Let me say, it's not seem to say. We talk a lot about freedom. And so, as a matter of fact, even the Star Spangled Banner, one of the quotes or one of the lyrics from the Star Spangled Banner, rather, is the land of the free. So today, my question is, are we really free, or are we just freer than others? So before we get into that, I would like to start with a little clip about the America 250th birthday celebration that's going on in Washington, D.C. So just a little commentary about that, and then we'll get into the things.
The nation's 250th birthday festivities have begun, but Donald Trump keeps trying to make them a celebration of Donald Trump. And so far, the American people are not obliging him. The 80-year-old president insists that 45,000 people, 45,000, were in this crowd right here for his speech on Wednesday night. A crowd that the Washington Post called smaller than some summer outdoor movie screenings. And many streamed out as Donald Trump was still talking. He even pleaded with people to show up to his next rally.
Then on July 4th, we will have the greatest show of all on the National Mall. Your favorite president will be speaking. So please show up. Because if we have 2 empty seats, you know what's going to happen? The fake news is going to say he didn't fill out the arena.
You heard him. Please show up. This is not how most Americans expected the nation's 250th birthday to look. Presided over by a weak authoritarian who is aging and self-absorbed and pretty paranoid. He seems more focused on gaming the system than on governing altogether.
Well, obviously, you can see from the clip that there's a bit of bias there, and in some cases, rightfully so, because it seems as though this America's 250th birthday has become about one person, which is unfortunate. But one of the things I want to get into before we really get into talking about freedoms and the lack thereof in certain cases, I want to start by giving the definition of what free is. So free means to be not under the control or in the power of another, able to act or be done as one wishes. That's one. Also not or no longer confined or imprisoned, and not subject to or constrained by engagements or obligations, and not subject to or affected by a specified thing, typically an undesirable one. So those are the 4 definitions of what free means. So with that being said, I have to ask you, are we really free, or are we just freer than other countries? I work with a lot of I would say Middle Eastern Uh, yeah, for the most part, it's a large Middle Eastern population at my job, and many of them are definitely in favor of what takes place here in America. Definitely, and I have to say other countries are as well, because think about all the immigrants that come from other countries to live in America because the conditions or the regime or whatever the case may be in their own country is less than desirable. So they flee. You know, what I find interesting as well, and just kind of a sidebar, is I have several coworkers that um, I wouldn't even say they flee, but they left their country for a better life, and then they still have major parts of their family, like mothers and fathers, still yet in their home countries, and haven't seen them in 10 years or more. And so I always find that interesting. But they left for a better life. So, with that being said, again, I ask, are we free, or are we just freer than other countries? And in some cases, it could be that we're just freer than other countries because, based off the definition of free, there leaves some things to be desired. I was reading recently an article from the Donner law firm, and so they had a little essay or something. They talked about freedom, and so one of the things they said is the real question is whether modern American freedom still operates in any meaningful, practical, day-to-day way, or whether freedom has become a slogan wrapped around a vast machinery of taxation, licensing, regulation, surveillance, debt, insurance control, court costs, pursuit barriers, procedural traps, criminal exposure, administrative discretion, and government by lawsuit. And in this article, they really compared the, I guess, the current society of America. They compared it to the medieval times, and so that was a comparison. And so I also would like to say, in some cases, I don't necessarily truly believe that we are free in the true sense of what free means. You know, I saw that clip about, they were talking about the America's 250th celebration, and instead of really focusing on that, the clip focused more on President Trump and his, reaching out or asking for people to um, make sure they're present at his rallies because he doesn't want the reports to be that no one showed up. But here's the thing: I think the focus is cool to be on that, but also we need to really focus on the really matter at hand and the freedoms that have been taken away slowly but surely, slowly but surely. If you think about it, in certain areas, we have they're taking Black history out of schools. Hmm. So there goes, freedom to be able to learn as you wish, and to be able to read the books as you choose, and gain the knowledge as you may want, for whatever reasons, whether it's to for your further your education, or just for your own personal knowledge of what happened, has happened, and what continues to happen in the United States. But banning certain books, um, that's a freedom that's being taken away. So um, I want to also draw attention to a couple of major things that have happened in the last. My apologies. Keep an eye on little Riley because he's getting a little restless. So we'll see how this goes. His sister is knocked out. She said, "Listen, I'm gonna chill." But anyway, so one of the things I want to go to, and this is based off the U.S. program director at the Human Rights Watch, said that the Trump's administration's second term has been marked by a relentless and persuasive assault on rights and freedoms. Isn't that kind of powerful when you think about it? And in certain cases, some people may argue that our current president is pushing to have a dictatorship versus, just in something that have that same dictatorship type of leadership that many other countries have. And so then I wonder too, if this does happen here, will people still want to flock to this country as they currently do? I don't know. And I don't even know if that would even take place, but it's still something that a lot of people are talking about. One of major freedoms that definitely affected the American people and women more so than anything is that the Roe versus Wade being overturned in 2022. This has had a huge impact on women's right to choose and what may be the best option for them. So now opening the door for women to have to travel to states where it is still considered to be legal to have abortions. But it also creates a space for women to have to go by doing things the unsanitary way and the harmful way, back alley, back door abortion, things of that nature. But what I find more interesting about this bill being overturned is the fact that women, it's almost like you don't have any control over they don't have any control over their own bodies. So even in cases where it's like they could definitely, perish, and if they should give birth or throughout, parts of the pregnancy, they may not survive, and then they're still forced to do so. I find that very heartbreaking that their right to choose has been taken away, even if they may perish as a result of going through this pregnancy. I get it, sometimes and I can see even growing up, I had several classmates or around high school that were using abortions as birth control. Seriously, I mean, it's unfortunate, but they were. They have a baby. I mean, have sex, get pregnant, and then that was their way. Instead of taking the necessary precautions to prevent it, that was their preventative measures from having kids. But there are women who really legitimately really want kids, and throughout the process, their body is telling them something different, and yet they have to go through with the pregnancy, full term, just because of these laws. And so they no longer have the right to choose what is best for them and their bodies. That's heartbreaking. I've read multiple articles, seen multiple stories in which mothers haven't made it. And now, and in some cases, the mother and the child don't make it. But then think about it in those cases where the mother doesn't make it and the child does, like the stories that have to be told to that child, that surviving child. So also what I found interesting is that more so recently in Louisiana versus Cali, there goes Aquila messing up again. But anyway, the Supreme Court effectively limited the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, requiring proof and intentional racial discrimination and undermining protections for minority voters in redistricting. This is very recent. This happened this year. And so voters' rights being taken away or being changed. That's the way. I don't know why I took this on to figure out that word, but yeah, voter rights being changed. And it's unfortunate because just another way that I say we're not really free. And this is a situation where we may be freer than others, but we're not really truly free, which is unfortunate. Because our voting rights, the rights that many of us have, or not many of us, but many of our ancestors and many of, in some cases, our mothers, fathers, grandparents have fought for these rights, and yet they have been taken without really giving a real sense of thought in my mind. But there is that. So also what I found interesting, and I don't know if it really ties into the free aspect of it, but I definitely found it interesting enough to mention is that nearly 300,000 Black women have exited the American labor force in the last 3 months. And this was actually from last year. The information that I'm talking about is from last year. And actually, the more recent report is more so closer to like 450,000, 500,000. Now, a year later, she's up. She's up. Anyway, but they've exited the labor force in the last few months. And the article attributes the mass exodus to the reasons like federal job cuts, and the dismantling of DEI programs, which have caused a lot of these women to lose their jobs. And then if you think about it, stop right there for a second, that in some cases, Black women are the head of their households, meaning that, if they're the breadwinner of the house and stuff like that, and so then they lose their jobs, and so where does that leave the family unit, which is unfortunate. And so now we don't have the freedom to live the life that we thought we had or thought we could. So many people grow up and they have this vision of the American dream, and of course the American dream looks different for everybody. But when you are going to school or whatever you may be doing to better yourself to achieve that American dream lifestyle, and then when you get there and the rug is pulled up from under you, you feel like you have no freedom to achieve the life that you thought you deserved, or not to say that you thought you deserved, that you actually do deserve. And so you worked hard to get it and everything like that, and then they pull the rug from under you. That's unfortunate. All of this is very much so unfortunate, but that's definitely unfortunate. And so it's interesting to me that that some just hear news like this and shrug a shoulder as if it doesn't really matter, if it doesn't, it's not such a big deal. All right. So he's whining and crying, and here he is. Say hello. Say hello. Say hello. So he woke up and he's whining and crying. So bear with me a few more minutes, Papa. But it's unfortunate. And again, I say, and that so many people kind of hear news like this and then it doesn't resonate with them. They kind of shrug a shoulder like, okay, it isn't me. That's a major thing. That's a big deal. And the article further went on to say, with issues like inflation, student loan debt, automation, and underrepresentation in growing tech sectors, creating a compound economic risk for Black women. And that all those things, in addition to them being the breadwinners in many of their households, and so it's definitely a hard hit, and it definitely affects your freedom to the life that you deserve. I find like this is actually three very good examples: the Roe versus Wade being overturned, the Voters' Rights Act being modified, the exodus of a major exodus of Black women from the American workforce. Those are three prime examples of how we ain't that free when you really think about it. Also, more so recently, July 1st, for all of us who have student loans, the student loan repayment options have changed. A friend of mine, which I thought my payment was pretty high. A friend of mine was sharing what her payment was, and I'm like, wow. So to think about it, that now you will the repayment options are being modified, so you won't have the freedom to try to make your payments. It's not that people go to school, get these loans, and don't want to repay them. It's the fact that they go to school, get these loans, get jobs that may not even have anything to do with your degree, that may not even be paying you what you expected to get once you graduated. So the way I think or the way it seems that some of these things these decisions are being made, especially for the student loan repayment, it seems like it makes it seem as though people get these loans and they never want to pay them back. And that's not the case. People really do want to pay these loans back, but they also need to live. And the fact that these loan payments are so very high, it prevents people from having any kind of quality of life. You know what I'm saying? To have to pay $1,400 or more a month, and you don't make that much from the beginning, it's like, wow, how is one to live? And then it's so much weight placed on student loan repayments that it hits your credit report, and all of the things. And so then I don't even really think that if you file bankruptcy, you are able to put your student loans on there. So you're still stuck with those, which is understandable in that regard, because then that would kind of dispel my initial comment that people don't want to pay back their, they get these loans and don't want to pay them back. But I dwell on the fact of it does create, it changes how people live and how people operate in their day-to-day. And it definitely has an impact on that. And so then you are not able to live dare I say, good life when you have, this type of debt. And now it doesn't seem as though that, they would like to work with people on, their repayments. And so then you're stuck with that. And then again, I go back to my original point or my other point, then they hit your credit, then, your dreams of owning a home and all those type of things are impacted by that. And so then you are forced with the choice of, hey, do I pay my student loans or do I eat? And I know that sounds extreme, but in certain areas and certain households, that is just what it is, And so then you choose, I need to eat, so I'm not going to pay these student loans. They get, they go into default. Now they're going to garnish your wages, so they're gonna get their money regardless. And so now they're garnishing your wages. It's on your credit, so it's like a slippery slope to affecting the life that you deserve to live. Yet, and so I think that was one of the things that was mentioned about, economic freedoms being altered and impacting people's lives, everyday lives. Didn't mean to go off on a tangent on the student loans, but that's very near and dear to me, just because of the fact that I know a lot of people that have student loans that definitely are working to pay their loans back, yet life happens sometimes and they're not able to. And then now they experience garnishments and all those type of things. And it's unfortunate. So they don't have the right to access the life that they thought that this degree or these degrees were going to provide for them. And it's definitely not easy for to see this and watch this. To go back to the Donner Law Firm's article, they went on to say that modern government is becoming more sophisticated. And like I said, they were comparing the modern government to medieval times. And so it went on to say it rarely appears as one man on a horseback demanding obedience. It appears as forms, portals, licenses, compliance departments, administrative rules, statutes, regulations, mandatory disclosures, agency guidance, court procedures, local ordinances, professional certificates, e-filing rejection notices, insurance requirements, zoning codes, tax classifications, and enforcement letters. So all those type of things are what have been said to be impacting, affecting, impeding upon what many of us would classify as our freedoms. So, and in some cases we don't really have any control. It's kind of like things are just going, and we're just forced to ride with it. It's weird that and here I go on another tangent, but it's weird that we are held to these standards, and yet our leader, so to speak, our president rather, is not held those standards. I was watching the news yesterday, and he took his first flight in that plane that he was gifted from Qatar. Breaking all the rules, but he's living his life freely. You know what I'm saying? He's living his life freely, doing the things that he wants to do and everything like that. But yet other people, the American citizens, are not able to do so, and it's unfortunate. And so then, what do we do? That's the question. What do we do? And, excuse me. And so now we have, upon the, getting ready for July 4th and getting ready to celebrate America's 250th birthday, and it just makes you wonder, yes, we are free in certain areas and for certain regards, but we're not free. We're not the free Americans that we once were. And so it seems like slowly but surely, all the freedoms that some of us and our ancestors and our parents and our grandparents and things of that nature have fought so hard for us to be able to enjoy and experience, those freedoms are being taken left and right. And so even just the freedom of having and achieving and living the life that you deserve being taken away at every turn. So it's very disheartening, and it's definitely unfortunate. I can say more about this and everything like that, but I will leave it at that. And so I'll leave you again with this question: are we really free? Or are we just freer than most? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me, Riley and Remy, who's chilling and sleeping and everything like that. But again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Have a great day.